this is what he spoke about last week.
Okay, smart.
Is it? No, we got 1 minute yet.
He's just getting ready.
Yeah, he's just
He's
getting
getting prepared.
People don't know what time it is.
Sure they do.
They'll never know.
Sure they will. Yeah. Yeah, let me do the motion first. All right, we're going to call the meeting to order with the pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So we're going to start the meeting with a change to the agenda, a real quick one. Need to make a motion to add in review of the Data Center Ordinance that we, what's that, Linus?
You said you read it.
Yeah, I did. Basically to get this to the Township Planning Commission and Perry County Planning Commission for their reviews so that we can set up a special meeting tonight to have the public hearing and adopt the ordinance in 30 days. With that, I'll give you kind of a timeline and why. We know everybody wants additional changes to this. We've got a lot of great emails, a lot of great feedback. We've got a great booklet here. But you're all aware of the timeline that we're under. June 30th is the zoning hearing board meeting. September 5th is the plan review intention. So we're trying to have this completed prior to the 30th of June meeting. I keep wanting to say January, but so we're going to talk about some minor changes hopefully tonight. Carol will hopefully get them in tomorrow, if not the following day. We're going to go ahead and send it over to Perry County and our Planning Commission for their review on June 5th, or I'm sorry, their meeting is the 10th. And we should have both of their comments back before the June 30th meeting with the zoning hearing board. So, like I said, a lot of great feedback. We appreciate what you've done. We will eventually hold additional workshops to do changes. Again, we don't want to piecemeal it. We want to come in with maybe a 10-item change and do a change later, just to save the idea of having multiple changes done. So again, keep the feedback coming, keep the ideas coming. We appreciate it. But keep in mind, we are under a timeline right now. We want to try to get this coordinated enough that we can get it passed. So I want to give the microphone to Joel for a minute. Well, I need a motion. I need a second on the motion, first of all.
I'll make a second.
Carl seconded. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed by the same. Motion carried to adopt the agenda.
I'm just going to read over the rules of conduct again, like we did last week. Township is aware that we may be talking about items that people feel very strongly about, that many could get emotional charged while listening. These rules are in place so that everyone can hear the discussion as well as have the opportunity to be heard. Please hold all comments so the board opens up to public comment. Rules. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to make a public statement. Disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. Members of the public engaging in disruptive behavior will be given a warning to cease. Further disruptive behavior will result in the individual or individuals being removed by state constable or state police. Disruptive behavior includes, but is not limited to, shouting down to a recognized speaker, talking over a recognized speaker, interrupting a recognized speaker, making noises that precludes a speaker from being heard, threatening language or activity, and physical alterations with no warning will be given. The board reserves the right the right to end the meeting if disruptive behavior prevents them from conducting business. Remember, please address your comments to the board, not to the audience. Please refrain from personal attacks. Any and all handouts can be given to the secretary at the end of the meeting. So again, tonight our agenda is to work on the ordinance. I know last meeting we had a lot of people speaking about how they moved their family from York County and Lancaster County, Perry County. We appreciate all your comments and all your statements, truly. But we need to hear about the ordinance tonight. If anybody wants to stand up here and speak and give us stories tonight, that mic's going to be turned off and we're going to move to the next speaker. Again, please, no disrespect. We got to get this thing done and we got to get it completed. So I hope everybody can understand that.
All right, so with that, we do have one person signed up for comments, Laura Chop, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Chope, all right.
Long up.
Long.
Yeah.
Okay, I talked to you guys last time, so I'll talk again. Since the last meeting, I did a lot of research.
Can you speak into the mic so everybody can hear if you don't mind?
I did a lot of research. Why are we forcing all of these regulations that you're coming up with before the state's two bills that are in the Senate right now? They have more protections for the residential electric users versus the commercial users for these data centers. I think someone needs to take a look at those two House bills that passed in March.
They were passed.
They were passed in the House.
Okay.
They are in the Senate right now.
Okay.
I have the paperwork back there if you want to see it. I did a lot of research on noise. And what I'm finding is your landscaping thing isn't going to work. It helps, but you're going to plant young stuff that's going to take years to grow. And it's not going to provide what you think it's going to provide in a quick manner. It also takes water. You plant trees, you plant bushes, you got to water. Where's that water coming from? We've had droughts here when we've lost a lot of landscaping because of the droughts, and you know, they're going to lose stuff like that. There are systems of baffles. Now, you may not like that idea because that means building walls, but those may be necessary. There are baffles they can put on the fans. We spoke last time about closed loop systems. Closed loop systems are like your vehicle. Not new vehicles, old vehicles. You run heated water from your engine. It gets heated up in your engine, it goes through radiator, cools down. You have to have not only water, but you have to have antifreeze. Now, I don't know the components of antifreeze, but I do know in a closed loop system, you can abuse in something like that. Closed loop systems have to be purged. They have to be purged probably once, maybe twice a year, because you get particulate matter that has to be taken out. What are they going to do with this stuff? They said they're going to truck water in to fill, purge the closed loop system, but depending upon what kind of system you use for the actual cooling towers versus heat exchangers, you might be using a lot more of our water for that, for the secondary evaporation to take place. I think there's a lot of things that weren't addressed in these regulations. They weren't addressed specifically enough to ensure that the residents of Watts Township are protected. And that's what I want to see. And I've got a whole sheet of papers back there with all kinds of stuff in them about the noise, about the water usage, about the PFAS. All this stuff is important. And I don't think anyone in our township wants to be dealing with it if the regulations aren't written correctly. But I really do think we should take a hard look and what the state's planning. Because I don't want to see this building get built and then we're grandfathered in with all kinds of problems. And that could easily happen. I could talk for hours.
Thank you.
But I'll give it up now.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Yes, it is in the House, and I think the last thing I read is not expected to pass the Senate because of the Republican Party. So I don't know what's happening there, but again, we need to have something now. So whatever happens in the state, whether it does or does not pass, because remember, the governor also has to sign off on that, so.
That's true, but I think we need to look at what they're planning, so we're not planning for something that's not in conjunction with what thought process is going
Well,
on.
I think we all certainly agree with that, and that's something we can look at in our future workshops. But we definitely need to get something in place now. So, yes, those are definitely things we can look at in the future, for sure. Okay, she was the only signer. I'll go from the back to the front. I'm just gonna say last row, second to last row. All right, anybody else want to speak? All right, sir in the back with glasses.
I'm Charlie England, 43 Hamden Road. I think I didn't see, I read over it, but it was quick because I just printed out this afternoon. I didn't see anything concerning the, like, real estate devaluation. And from what I understand, in other places, real estate has devalued when these have come. So I would request that something be done with that. It would be really nice, because I'm less than a half a mile away from it. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Next. Yep. Go ahead, Leonard. Now, up front here in the green shirt first.
Lloyd.
Lloyd.
First, I want to say thanks for different things that I already saw in there. The decimal, noise decimal, the mine's going blank. Should have wrote it down.
That's all right.
So there's a bit of the closed loop. I'm glad for that, and then also the not using the groundwater for that loop, that you have to truck it in, stuff like that. So it was in the height, that was good. So I appreciate all the good work that you've done. Let me just read what I've given you there. It's just like perhaps another addendum would be legal and citizens' rights. You know, it is essential that all residents have access to peaceful and safe occupancy of their dwellings. To this end, if the groundwater, noise, vibration, or any other environmental issue makes a dwelling unfit to live, the owners of that the data center shall buy back the land from the nearby residents. The jury or elected committee of 12 residents from a nearby community should sit in a panel to assess a complaint. If 9 out of the 12 residents agree that the property has been impacted, MPRI or the data center would have to buy the property back at current market value of a nearby community not impacted by the data center. If there's an issue with the groundwater, noise, vibration, or any other environment of more than 5 homes, this would constitute a data center shutdown if it impacts the community like that. Alternatively to say a jury of 12, if a dispute arises, a case could be brought to, say, the home zoning hearing board. If 2 of the 3 board members agree the property is impacted, data center would buy back the property at current market value of nearby communities not impacted by the data center. If any company associated with the data center should sue Watts Township in any fashion, they should pay all legal fees for the Watts Township in such litigation. No company should seek to bankrupt our municipality with legal fees. The data center shall construct both water, noise, vibration monitoring, which is open to internet review and recorded for a period of 5 years. If the data center would exceed either a water, noise, or vibration metric for 3 days in total of the year, the data center would face a $100,000 fine. Period would be from January 1st to December 31st. If the data center exceeds either a water noise or vibration metric for 10 days, it would be subject to a $1 million fine. Beyond 10 days, the data center would be subject to shutdown. Backup power generation due to power loss would be excluded from these metrics. I just was trying to put something together that would say protect our community and protect the township from legal fees and things like that. I don't know the legalese to that, but that's just kind of the spirit of it. So leave that with me.
Thanks, Art.
Lines, we talked about some of that earlier. Do you want to elaborate on any of that, about the already in the zoning ordinance municipality?
What's that?
The legal aspect of it is fines and regulations and that.
Well, there,
It's on. It's already on.
yeah, I mean, there's a process for violating the zoning ordinance, and the data center provisions would be in the zoning ordinance. So whatever the zoning ordinance has in regard to any violations would have to go under the zoning ordinance, which is pursuant to the municipality's planning code. These provisions were just handed to us. Certainly the board can look at them. Some of them would not frankly pass legal muster, but certainly the Board of Supervisors can look at these and give consideration to them if they have some validity and can be considered within the confines of the law. That would be my opinion on these provisions that were just handed to us.
So there are some protections already in place through the municipal code and the zoning ordinance. So we can look at these for additionals to that.
Okay. And could you post that somewhere, what those would be, like what you're talking about?
Can you work on something, Linus? Just kind of briefly outline that, or is it already there?
We can work on it. Okay.
We'll work on it.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, or somebody else up right here? I'm sorry,
Hello, my name is Daniel Welter. I'm aware that there's a group that are calling themselves the Watts Coalition for Responsible Zoning, and that they presented some information, some input this week to the supervisors. I don't know which items you're going to emphasize tonight to make a few changes. You said you'll make a few changes, but maybe not a lot tonight. But I'm concerned about a particular thing that I'm aware was in their materials. And that is a provision that's in some other ordinances that says that no construction can commence on the site until there's procurement contracts for the essential equipment that's necessary for the data center. Now, the reason that many municipalities put that requirement in their ordinance is because they're concerned about the speculative nature of investment in these data centers, where they start building and they destroy the land. They start building a building before they have confirmed that they can actually contract to procure all the equipment they will need. And right now there is a big demand for this kind of equipment. And the concern is, will the building be built? And then if something happens with supply changes or economic realities, it's never populated with the equipment, and then you have a building sitting on the site that you've already destroyed the land. So I think if they have wording in there from other ordinances, it's worth taking a really good look at tonight and making a decision about that, because I think that would prevent a lot of destruction and construction beginning until you are sure that the data center can actually be built. The other thing I would say, to my understanding, given the gentleman's recent question about penalties, that currently in the zoning ordinance for the township, if there's any violation of your ordinance by a data center, they'll be fined $500 initially. And then for every day they don't correct the problem, another $500. that's peanuts to a data center. They could use that as an operating expense. They would probably rather pay the $500 a day than fix the problem that they've created. So I think, and that's a challenge a lot of municipalities are having right now, is the enforcement piece. Monitoring for violations, and if the violations happen, how do we make sure the penalties are high enough that it actually deters those violations? So that's really worth some careful, either at the workshops later or now, some really careful consideration and coming up with some creative solutions, maybe along the lines the gentleman suggested. But that would be my two things, is give some real look at how will you monitor compliance? What will the penalties be if they violate the ordinance? And also this kind of procurement contract piece. Before they push any dirt, cut any tree, show you that they have contracts to actually acquire the equipment that they need for the data center. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, young lady. Yep.
Hi, my name's Lenny Morgan. I just have a couple questions. One thing I was wondering is, after this all ends, as in the data center is no longer needed, and that sounds weird, but at some point the technology is going to change and it's going to be put in space. And they're even trying to like figure that out now, how to put the data centers in space. So what happens to these buildings afterwards? Are there some kind of remediation that happens, that they have to put the land back to the way it was, which would be very hard to do, or what happens to these buildings? I'm wondering.
We do have current decommissioning in our ordinance. A lot of people have questioned the buildings. In fact, I think that's probably going to be a topic here tonight about the buildings. So certainly something we got to look at.
Okay. The other ones. The other thing is, I know they talked about the valuation of the houses, and I've seen that the value of the houses can go down, and then there's like this residential fleet, and people might leave the surrounding areas. After that happens, I've seen like in Virginia that the areas then are bought up by the data center companies and then are rezoned, and it kind of ends up being like a positive feedback loop where people keep leaving and then more land gets bought up and then there's even more data centers put in. Is there anything in there that can stop that from happening, for more and more land to get rezoned?
Well, that would go to our zoning hearing board for consideration. They would have to request a hearing with the zoning hearing board for any type of rezoning. So that would be a whole separate process in itself.
Okay. And then my last question is, I was thinking about just anybody with livestock in the area, and I know just through like people that like with fighter jets, right? And they have flight paths, and if they fly over certain areas, they'll kill entire things of flocks of turkeys and things like that, just from the stress of the noise. Is there anything in there that's going to say, oh, well, your animals have been stressed out for so long and caused, underlying disease and then have killed off, some of your animals? Is there some way to get compensation for that?
I don't think we currently have anything concerning livestock, but if you would like to do an email to Carol, kind of outlining your idea and thought process,
Okay.
we'd gladly take a look at it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's definitely something we'd like to look at.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Gentleman down here on the end.
Did I get them? Pardon me.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Gross. I did email you guys a pretty lengthy amendments that I had made last week, I believe it was, to address the real estate. The question about the real estate, there was a provision that I found in here where the developer or data center operator would have to pay for real estate assessments, and if the value dropped over time, it would be the onus of them would be on them to compensate the homeowner. To the gentleman who talked about proving that they have the equipment, there was another provision that I put in there where they would have to prove they have an actual tenant who's going to take possession of this property and be a renter. The reason being is We all see what's happening in the news. These data centers are expanding rapidly. At some point, we have to reach a peak point of saturation in the market where they're no longer as wanted as they are to be. So what we don't want to have happen is them destroy the land and then the buildings sit vacant for months, years at a time, and they get nothing out of it. The tax revenue that was promised to us and all the money that was promised to us doesn't come because they don't have a tenant. So if they can't prove to us that they have somebody willing to take the building, they shouldn't be allowed to build at all. In addition to that, one of the comments I would make is you guys have done a great job so far with what you have, but you need more robust, defined language. You cannot have too many words and too many pages on here as long as we're well defining that. So for example, on page 4, you talk about building height. You say the building height can be a maximum of 45 feet. The question I would ask is, what do you want to accomplish from that? Because if it's just a 45-foot building, there's workarounds for how they can put the cooling systems on there. They can do a ground-based, or they can do a smaller 20-foot. So if you want the building to be 45 feet, or if you want the building to be 25 feet plus 20 feet baffles, say that. Clearly define that. In addition to this, I had more, and a lot of this was based upon things, other ordinances I found, other things that were written around the state. For example, for water, pre-construction water testing of the wells, both quality and quantity. Post-inspection, the addition of ground monitoring wells upstream and downstream from the site. From Jim Thorpe, they wrote in their ordinance that they have for 120 months after the site is commissioned, the burden of proof is on the data center operator if wells are diminished. So it's automatically assumed that they caused the diminishment of the well, and they have to pay outright. It's up to them to go to court and prove otherwise. So that's really something that protects that. When it comes to noise, define how you're going to collect, what metrics you're going to use, how you're going to calculate decibel level. Air pollution, make sure you're including things of complying with different FDA and EPA regulations, the Tier 4 regulations. So I would just ask, if you haven't read this, I have copies. Please look through this and take the time to put more robust language into that.
Do you have something printed out we can have?
Yeah, absolutely.
Please leave them here. Thank you.
I can give you guys.
I did look at your email.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You want a copy for the office?
I think
I
we
have the email. You have one?
I think we got that the email.
Okay. All right, I think I saw one more hand somewhere. Okay, if not, we're gonna move into this. So we'll start with page 1 again, as we did before, which is basically definitions and the whereabouts of the ordinance. Carl, do you have anything on page 1?
Yep. Nope.
Joel, page 1.
No, nothing.
Okay. Page 2 is definitions. Anything on definitions, page 2? Joel?
No.
Well, we can go back and revisit them, figure out where we want to put them.
I got nothing else.
We'll revisit these after we get through what we want.
Okay.
Okay, page 3 definitions, before I get to mine. Joel, do you have anything? Carl? Okay, I think in sensitive receptors, we need to remove the excluding trails, because we do have the rails to trail, which is just across the way, which is a national park under the corridor. I do have a lady that's looking into how large the corridor expands for the Appalachian Trail, but being that that is, basically considered a national park, I think we should take out excluding trails.
Agree or disagree? Joel?
I'm good with that.
Carl?
Yep, good.
Okay, so we're gonna take out excluding trails. Anything else on page 3? Now, we kind of talked about this one earlier, page 4, which is going to be height regulations. Number 1, is going to stay the same. Number 2 is going to be eliminated altogether, which will move number 3 up to number 2 and number 4 up to number 3. And under number 4, we are going to take out the last part where it says except where necessary uses are atop the principal building, because that in turn would add additional height to the 45 feet. So we are taking that last sentence out of the number 4 and removing number 2 altogether. Anything else under number 4, page 4? All right. And I'm sorry, I'm going to try to start kind of listening to things that are on the pages. I apologize. I didn't start that and then I kind of got away from it. So page 4 also dealt with coverage regulations, building design, and landscape buffer. Landscape buffers move over into page 5. Carl, anything on page 5?
No, I didn't see nothing
Joel?
yet.
Well, we want to talk about some of the comments that were made on heights of, this is not landscaping, isn't it?
Your landscape.
There's one point, the bottom of page 3, it says height regulations in bold. I think that's supposed to be letter, it's supposed to have a letter.
Yeah, that should be D, and
Means that
then D
all of
should be
the others
E.
would be renumbered.
Yeah, D should be E, E should be F,
Okay,
F should
yep.
be G. Good catch, thank you. Okay, so back to landscape and buffer and screening requirements. I mean, it's kind of hard to plant mature trees. Everything has to grow.
You can get, we can say a tree, like a shrub, but it's gotta be like 5 or 6 foot.
I think we have that in there.
We should have that.
We did have something that said something about chest height diameter.
Well, we should go a little higher, yeah. Let's put in 6 foot.
I don't know if we had anything about height of landscape, did we?
No, we did have about diameter.
Page 6, letter B at the top.
That was in the woodland information.
Yeah.
2.5-inch caliper.
Yeah, so you have 8-inch for evergreens, 2.5-inch caliper. Ornamental trees are 2.5-inch, which is pretty big. Shrubs. So you do kind of define the size. Those are typical sizes I see in ordinances.
Okay. Also on page 5 is required landscape buffer yards, which has A, B, and C. Anything under those?
The stuff about the trees was in the woodland. That's where the size of the trees
Okay,
came in.
we'll get back to that page here in a second then.
Yeah, but that was, when you were referring to that back here, that was in a different section.
Okay, very good, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, moving on to page 6. Still continuing buffer planning requirements, exclusions, measurements, maintenance, and existing vegetation. Then it moves into screening and fencing. Anything on page 6 from either of you gentlemen? I haven't heard none. Moving to page 7. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, does it say how tall the fence is?
That's going to be in the next section. Now, either one of you gentlemen have anything on page 7, because I do if you don't.
No.
And I think I answered my own question, and if I did, then we can move forward. But under B, fencing of property is permitted, provided the fencing is fully screened from view by one or more means identified in section G1C below. I know we've defined 8 feet later on And 6 feet, I don't know if we want to define it here also or just stay with what we have later. Seeing how we're looking at two different heights. I would say not, and just leave it where we have it already in the next section.
So, just to be clear, so you don't want this fencing to be seen?
That's the way I read that, yes. And that's the way I'm expecting.
So many times ordinances actually use fencing as a screen.
Right.
You don't even want the fencing to be seen.
Yeah, we're talking about if it's a chain link fence, it would be, you have the sleeves so that you can't see through it. Is that how I'm understanding?
Right.
That's not how I would interpret that section of the ordinance. It says a visually solid fence
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Provided that the fencing is fully screened from view, so you're actually hiding the fence, what
Yeah,
you're
right.
doing.
That's what I'm questioning. Is the fence to be used to help screen the use? Or do you want to screen the fence? Like,
No, we want to screen the use,
so
so we need to
it's
reword that.
confusing.
So the fencing is modified, screened to prevent view of the, I'm not even sure how to word that. Provided that fencing fully screens the interior boundaries. Looking for some help.
So where are you thinking of having this at? You talking like areas like up on Taylor? So
Wherever they have a
people can't
fence,
use
wherever the
all
fence
fence
is,
locations.
any fencing, yeah, would apply to any fencing.
Chris, can you give us any help on?
Well, maybe just remove it.
Remove the whole thing or just part of it?
That whole section seems to say you want to screen the fence from view. So why don't you just get rid of that section if that's not what your intention was?
You're talking about 5, right?
Be a good idea.
5B, or no, just B.
B, yeah. 5 talks about fencing.
Okay, so B then would be eliminated, C moves up.
If that makes sense to you, I'm just, I don't know what that section is trying to say other than screen the fence from view. Or if you
Right.
don't want to screen the fence from view, then I'd just get rid of that whole
Yeah, I think I
paragraph.
would get rid of it.
Get rid of B.
Do we have the intent shown somewhere else?
Well, that's what I'm reading here.
Maybe what you want to say is that the screen, the fence is not see-through like a chain link fence you can see.
And that's what,
So maybe you want it to say that it's solid.
Or you add an item under C that says fencing with, you know,
That's exactly what I was
a
thinking,
privacy
yeah.
fence. You add it as one of the
Yeah,
numbers
so-
under C.
well, you could even do it as part of one, architectural walls or enclosures, matching building materials, or screen fencing.
Or screen fencing, yeah. yeah.
So add that one,
Okay?
or screen fencing.
Or screen fencing?
Yeah. So taking B out, and an additional screen fencing onto item 1 under C. Moving on to lighting, which is H on page 7.
Those changes, we got rid of the horizontal.
And we made sensitive and insensitive, both 1 foot candle. Okay. Moving on to noise. I know we talked about it before. I want to go first here on this one. I truly feel that we need to have a pre-study done day and nighttime before any construction begins. And that would probably consist at the four corners of the property and midline of each property line. With the daytime testing being done between the hours of 10 and 2, and nighttime between the same 10 and 2. I really think we need to have that, because the reason being is, excuse me, if the current sound levels at any of those points already exceed the 45 decibels, then we have to make sure and have a reading of those to make sure they don't exceed what the current levels are. I truly believe that we need a pre-study done, provided by the developer.
You may want to even consider time of year. I mean,
Well, I was getting there
in
too.
summer, there's bugs that are very loud, and in the winter, it's much quieter.
Well, and you don't have the foliage either, so it would be daytime, nighttime. Usually your peak foliage is the end of July, and then November is usually your end foliage.
Is that one year seeing
I have a
testing being
question.
done?
One second, let us finish, and then we'll
I don't
get
have much
to.
experience with that. I mean, I just know from a practical standpoint, in the summer it's loud, at nighttime in
Right.
the woods, so.
Well, on one side you have 15, the other side you have 322, and then you have Hammond and Taylor, which are less road traffic. So
Yeah, so in the
again,
winter, you'll hear more road traffic. 'cause
well,
there's
that's what I'm
less
saying,
leaves,
so
but
we
in
need
summer,
to get those pre-studies done to see what's there.
Yeah.
So yes, ma'am, go ahead now.
I have a question about this pre-testing of noise, because this is an agricultural area, and you have people who go out and farm, but they're only out there for an X number of hours or X number of days throughout the year. And when you do that testing, if you've got half a dozen people running tractors, it's going to be higher. But if it's normal, everyday stuff, it's going to be low. You're not going to hear it. Weekends, you're going to hear tractors or lawnmowers cutting grass and stuff like that. You're going to have higher levels at certain times of certain days, certain weeks, certain months. So when you're talking about, doing pre-testing, you have to take into account that a lot of those noises that will be heard will not be heard 24/7, 365 days a year. They will be heard a minimal amount of time. And you can't go out there and say, well, the neighbors are running their tractors today, let's test the noise. That's not going to work. I don't know how you're going to get around that, but I know you cannot go out there indiscriminately and say, oh, well, today it's 55 decibels, and tomorrow it's 75 decibels, and, further down it's 35. Because we all hear those noises. We all hear them. But we hear them for shorter periods of time. And even if we hear them 2 or 3 days in a row, we do not hear them 365 days, and we do not hear them 24/7.
Correct.
That's my consideration on this whole thing with the noise. Is this is going to be noise that happens on a constant basis. You're going to hear this morning, noon, and night, and it's going to be higher than what most people hear, except for a few hours out of a week.
And you are correct, and we do have the 45 decibels set.
Yes.
But the point being is if on AB corner, because of the highway, just alone at nighttime is 63 decibels,
Yes.
and daytime it's 85 decibels, then that already exceeds those decibels that we have set. I mean, a helicopter flying over during their test could offset the testing too. But I think it's important to at least get some type of baseline down.
Yeah.
So that we have that. So let's say, it goes up to, 150 decibels. We know the contributing factor would be them at that point.
When you're picking whoever's going to do this testing, you have to have certain requirements for them to say, okay, this is a fairly normal, quiet time. when you're not hearing, you know, car backfiring or planes going over or whatever. If you don't have these requirements in the testing, then they're gonna say, well, you know, it's 75 decibels.
Well, and that's kind of why I was looking at the timelines of 10 and 2 each, because usually 10 and 2 are your busiest times of day.
I hear
And-
out there all day long.
Well, I know, but,
Planting season or whatever, I mean, those are like the noisiest things.
right.
Our neighbor runs equipment off and on. If he's doing something in particular on his property, he may have it running during the day.
Right.
45 decibels is a quiet conversation.
Yes.
Right.
It's not much, so that's a good baseline.
Right. And I know there's some things in here alluding to that, that I did get to read a little bit about, so.
But I don't want somebody in pre-testing to come in and say, well, there's normally 75 decibels, so what are you complaining about? You know? I mean, that's-
Well, that certainly,
could happen.
you know, that certainly could happen, but if we get a baseline down and we have something to set by, like I say, if we should reach 150, then we have to look at why we reached 150. Is it them? Is it a change in traffic? Is it a change in air traffic? You know, what sent that above that initial reading of 75? So I think it's important we get some type of baseline. I'm gonna take two more, I saw 2 more hands and then I'm gonna move on.
All right, so with this, in the amendments that I presented to you, there's a sound and vibration study that's required prior to, that it defines the ISO standard by which the test will be performed. If it's an ISO standard, it's going to have provisions for how the test is done, when it's done, the metrics that are used. In addition, in the sound section, there's included definitions for natural environmental sounds, natural community sounds, nighttime hours, pure tone, all these different things. So if we have this language in there, and if you're looking at that, it's page 10 and page 13 there. And then in addition to that, there's a post study done 6 months conducted 6 months after, prior to the release of escrow for the account. So if they fail the first one, they can't even no one can take occupancy of the place. There's no release of occupancy permit. So if we have a well-defined ISO standard for which to follow, then we should be in a good spot for that.
Where's that one that I gave you that he presented? Did I give that to you?
I don't have that one.
Well, I thought I
Did
gave
you?
that to you.
You want it after the office?
No, the one that he gave us, I thought I gave you one to keep for
You
you.
guys need
No,
to
I don't
have
have
more
that
copies
one.
of these.
He handed it to,
You have
I
more
said I
on you?
have one at the office.
Please.
I thought I gave you one for the office. I thought I gave you mine for the office.
How many days?
One for Carl, one for myself.
Page 11 and 13, but there's 2 pages I referenced.
Yeah. Right.
Verify that.
What's that?
Probably verify that. That's,
Yeah,
you can't do that right now.
right.
I think we need to get a sound expert involved to help.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that would be agreed upon.
That could be one of the tweaks you make later, is get a sound expert to help with that.
Yeah, but I still think we need to get in here for a pre-sound study tonight. With an agreed upon.
I think a
Then-
pre-sound study's a good idea. And I think a developer might actually want that as well. So that's comparing, it's fair. You know, if the decibel ratings are higher than the ordinance today, well then they can't be held to reduce the sound.
Right.
You know, so I think it's.
But it can't
very-
exceed
very
that at
fair.
that, you know, at that line. So,
Did you have a proposed, I see you have notes, did you
well,
write
that's what I'm
down
trying to figure out
something?
where to put it. You know, it says the noise study will be provided with a conditional use application containing pre-construction levels and post-construction level conditions showing sound levels at the time of operation along all property lines. So we need to like make 1, 2, and then put in 2, or number 1, a pre-sound study with application be done
So almost like you're just gonna tell what this conditional, the
Well, one's
noise
gonna become
study
number
is.
2,
Okay,
because that has to do with provided with a conditional use application.
so when will they submit?
Pre-construction levels and post-construction levels. So we want to define that those.
What that will be?
Well, the
You already
times-
have, in 1A, you already
Right.
have a preliminary study required.
Right.
You could just add
Define what that
verbiage
is.
that
Right, that's what I'm
that
trying to
preliminary
do.
study
Yeah.
includes
That's what I'm
existing
trying to figure out how to word it,
Yeah.
yeah. So. All right, so sound study shall be conducted between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m.
Okay,
Yeah.
and 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. and 2 a.m.
okay,
Say it again. 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.?
10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. At time of peak foliage during the month of July. And end of foliage month of November.
Maybe give a range, depending on, I would think any time that there are no leaves on the trees.
Well, I was gonna say, usually your fall foliage is done in November.
Or
So,
someone doing a study, they might,
well, that's what I say, July is usually peak foliage.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't get so specific that you must do it in the month. Like, say, they have to be conducted twice a year, once between, May and August.
Well, that would be post-study. We're talking pre-study right now.
I'm talking pre-study too.
Oh, okay.
But you have to remember, to do a pre-study, it's gonna take them a year.
Right.
Or at least 6 months. Because they gotta do one when there's no leaves and one when there are. So, you could say that, the no-leaf condition needs to be done between November and
March.
February or whatever. And then the other one has to be done between, April and August or whatever. Maybe April's still early.
Yeah.
May and August, or something like that. That way it gives a little flexibility, not just that 1 month, but you're still achieving the goal of leaves and no leaves.
Right. Okay. And that would be utilization of a vendor agreed upon by both parties.
both parties?
So you want to reread that?
I didn't write it down verbatim.
Okay, well, the best you can.
Okay, so basically we're gonna say, a noise study will be provided with conditional use application containing pre-construction levels with noise testing being done between the times of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. at the time of peak foliage and no foliage, would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a vendor agreed upon by both parties.
Do you want to make that a month period instead of peak and no?
Darren,
Experts.
what about every 3 months for a full year?
Well, we're going to get to that after we get this part done. I heard him and I heard you, so yeah. So let's do between the months of November and February.
Okay,
Yeah.
November, February.
So we'll do it between the months of November and February and the months of June to September. Because I know when I was sitting in the woods turkey hunting, there still ain't a lot of leaves.
Okay.
Okay, now, back to repetitive testing before construction. I think with continuation of testing every 6 months prior to construction, and then we can address post-construction in the next part. Joel? Chris? Sound good?
Yeah.
Yep.
With additional
Repeat that again.
Additional testing every 6 months
After that initial, while they're doing construction?
after initial, prior to start of construction.
Does it need to be included that you're going, does it need to be detailed in here about the 4 different sites that you want it to be completed
I'm
at?
getting there too.
Perfect.
Yep. And again, like I said earlier, testing would be at each four corners and midline of each property line. And that kind of gives you the general area of each. So the testing will be conducted at four corners and mid-property line of each property line. Carl?
No, it's fine.
Okay,
A little more.
what's that?
We'll keep the testing in line.
Okay, now we're on the post-construction noise study. Shall be submitted 6 months after full occupancy of each phase. The study shall be submitted demonstrating compliance with noise standards. Again, all costs of both studies will be paid for by the applicant. Additional noise studies will be conducted every year at the expense of the landowner or occupant. So they will continue post-construction and additional noise studies every year after they are occupied. Any questions on that? Does that answer a lot of the questions that were asked?
That should be 6 months, not a year. I mean, somebody would have to put up with it for a year before it's tested.
Well, your zoning ordinance has the ability of, at any time if there's a violation, to immediately take action. I mean, this is it's a study that's going to happen automatically, but if someone thinks that there's something wrong, the township, I think that they can go and test it anytime they want and issue a violation.
So what he's saying is, through our current ordinance, we have the ability, if we receive a complaint at any time, to retest and then address the issue at that point. So,
I just think it would be pretty simple if they provide on-site information on a daily basis. I mean, it just, it sits there and as far as, and then just feeds to the internet what the sound levels are. I could see that being ongoing. I don't want, it wouldn't be, I don't think it'd be fair if I mean, okay, someone complains about it, and then, then it goes into the bureaucracy. But if they have microphones that are posted on site, you don't have to do a study. They would have to hire some kind of noise specialist, put equipment in there, and then it would just be run every day, every hour, every minute. And then no one would have to put extra funds out to do a noise study. It would just be there 24/7 all the time. A noise study is just a pinpoint in a timeline, and it really doesn't accomplish much. It's the ongoing part that you want to.
Should we allow full-time monitoring?
he's asking if that's something that we can do.
They're available.
Well, I know they're available.
I would come back to it later after you consult with a sound expert, acoustics engineer or something. I think this section is going to need some tweaking later on after you talk to a consultant that can advise you well. Better than me.
Chris is saying we probably should work with another consultant on that, for that, make that another change later. But it's definitely, we have it down, that's definitely something we can look at.
I just have a question about the process you're using here tonight. Are you still open to this kind of public comment, or would you rather like move through what you were planning, the changes you were thinking about on planning? Because I'm just concerned that all this public comment, right, may slow you down so much, and you said it's really important to get this done.
And I agree 100%, but in some manner, I also think it's important that we hear while we're on that subject, and I don't really think it's going to delay us any, because rather than later hearing a comment and having to go back and find it, I think this is actually a better process now that I'm seeing it, because we're addressing it right up front, rather than taking 30 or 40 comments later and trying to come back and address those. So we can make the change now with the public's comments. I think it's going to keep everybody happy and keep the process moving. Because we have the other ones that were brought up that we want to get to at the end and see if we can put them in somewhere. And that's what's going to take the time. So we can clear the public at this time. I think that's the best process, now that I see what's happening. So I like your question, but I think we're on the right track.
Can you add vibration to the sound testing, like vibroacoustic testing, which if you're testing for noise, vibration, it will.
Yeah, that's something we're gonna get a sound expert involved in with how we would do that testing.
Can I
Okay.
just clarify real quick? You said additional testing prior to construction. So they're going to submit this first one with the application. At what point then were you saying you wanted an additional one before they even start construction?
Every 6 months.
Every 6 months before construction?
Yeah.
Because it takes at least 6 months to do the study. So I'm just not sure.
What's the purpose of any, except for the first
We
one?
don't have to, then just no additional.
Just the initial one submitted with the application. Okay.
And then the very next one would be 6 months
After the completion of the
completion
phase.
of the first phase.
The first phase, yeah. Okay.
Darren, as far as the continuous sound study is concerned, I like the idea on one hand. On the other hand, I just want to mention that it would have to be done by a neutral third party setting the.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, one last, then we'll move it on.
Yeah, just thinking through the sound study a little bit, if this is gonna run for the developer going forward, there should probably also be sound studies required of any change of use in the area. Because a new granary or something like that could come in next door, and it's going to affect the decibel level that's showing up on the property lines, which you won't be able to know.
No, that would happen, we would certainly take that into consideration, absolutely. If anything would change after the initial study, we would have to consider that.
So who would be doing that study when the new use comes in?
It would still be on the developer.
You're talking about if somebody else comes in and builds something or changes their,
We'd have to discuss that, and maybe either be on the party coming in or on the party of the data center, but
I think that should probably be in the ordinance now, though, rather than discussing it later, right? If someone decides to sell their farm and puts in 150 homes, shouldn't they be the one doing the study to see how their homes are going to affect the noise coming on that same area?
lines.
Whoever comes in is
We'll do the additional sound study.
do the additional sounds.
But you have no teeth to make them do that, because nothing else in your ordinance makes anybody other than a data center do a sound
Right.
study.
It would need to be in the ordinance. Otherwise, it's gonna be a back and forth with
Have to
data
start
centers
treating
saying we
one
didn't
use
make this
differently.
noise.
Right.
True. You're gonna mandate that, you're gonna have to require the data center.
So where do we want to put that?
You can't put it in this one.
Yeah,
I mean, you
in
can
this
put it
one.
in, but it's not gonna be in the data center section. It's gonna be in a
We have to
generic
change that in
section.
our regular ordinance.
Correct. And if
Okay.
you do that, then you may as well just move all of this stuff to that section and make all uses do that. But that's awfully onerous on,
Whoever comes in.
yeah, so.
Yeah, but right now they bought all the property up that you can only put a data center. So nowhere else can they put grain or anything else right now. So
Right.
I say put it in. Hold them to it.
Well, we have it there. I mean, it's there.
Yeah, to be clear, I'm not talking about the data center property, I'm talking about the properties that surround.
Yeah,
it.
I know what you're referring to, yep.
Everything, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's something we would have to address if another entity would come in and make them do an additional sound study. And I think like Chris said, we need to address that in our regular ordinance, more than likely. Give or take.
Yeah, I mean, it is the zoning ordinance, but I don't think you want to involve yourself down with that yet.
Okay. All right. Moving on to access, safety, and security, which is J on page 9. Any changes there on page 9, Bob? One second, let me get through this and I'll get to you. Okay, so the question was asked about fencing height. Number 6, all fencing, including security fencing, must be a minimum of 8 feet in height at the highest point of the fencing or any appendages, including but not limited to barbed wire. Any non-ravine water sources, including but not limited to ponds, lakes, marshes, swamps, and similar areas, whether human-caused or naturally occurring, shall be fully enclosed with a fence of at least 6 feet in height. This includes all stormwater management facilities, and we need to make that 6 feet would include and not limited to barbed wire, the same as the top, any appendages, including but not limited to barbed wire. Does that answer the question on height? Anything else on that? Moving on to K, emergency management. All right, L. Well, I have a lady back here first. She had a question on the other subject. I almost forgot. 1 second, lady behind you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, on that, I missed the part on backup generators. I had a question on that. So I thought we had decided they would be 45 also. That's not possible for backup generators.
Well, 45 would be the overall at the property line. So,
So even when the generators are working, the data center, it would still be 45?
at the property line,
Okay,
yes.
and is there a limit of days that they're allowed to use generators? Should there be a limit of days?
Well, they have to test them frequently, so I mean, that's something that we can regulate.
If the power's out?
Okay. Well, we need, I don't think we're into the power yet, are we?
Well,
Well,
number
the back-
6 should be dated. Complete.
On which, what page and where are you at?
Of that, it's that.
Page 9.
The noise.
The bottom. Number 6.
Page 9, Scott?
Yeah.
Where they can't exceed the maximum sound levels, except for emergencies or whatever. Well, what's an emergency? What if they're waiting on parts for 6 months? You still be running whatever.
Run your generator.
Electrical components, they can run generators full time so they get home in.
Well, correct, we have the 45 decibel reading.
It says that the levels listed above do not apply.
Maybe the word not should be thrown in there, or not exempt.
You could do it 2 ways. You could cap it, the emergency power at, say, 75, which is still tolerable. That's like high.
time frame.
Or you could, but probably wouldn't do it at a time frame.
You could put a duration of the emergency.
Or the defined emergency. EPNL is power's out.
Yeah, I think that should do it more of a power, which emergency, not a.
Right, or state of emergency or something of that nature.
Something that's not their doing, something that's the power
Right.
company's doing.
Yeah, exactly.
There's emergency. What's the definition of emergency?
That's what we're trying to readjust.
Yeah.
Can you just say activities that exceed the maximum do not apply during a utility company power outage?
State of emergency or power outage. So a noise reduction barrier, no, activities that exceed the maximum sound levels listed above do not apply, but are not limited to emergency alerts, emergency work to provide electricity, water, or other public utilities when public health or safety is involved. So I think we want to reword that to either a state of emergency or utility power outage somehow.
Would you take out the emergency work to provide electricity and replace that with state of emergency or loss of power and leave everything else?
Good.
Still should be a period of time.
What'd you say, Chris, state of
What did you say, Scott?
It should be for a period of time.
Well, yeah, let's define emergency first, and then we can.
But electricity's out for 3 days, 4 days. I mean, does that mean they could run at whatever level they want?
Right, yeah, we hear what you're saying. Let's define emergency first, and then we can address that.
Because I'm imagining this emergency alert to be like if they had some type of siren system saying there's
Right,
an
that,
emergency.
that would have to exceed the decibel level.
Right.
Any type of emergency warning system.
An emergency work, would that, to provide electricity, would that include like if they had to bring in bulldozers to do something? Like in my mind, that's what I'm imagining from that current verbiage. And did you want to remove
Well,
that?
That I agree with. I mean, emergency
So
work
do
to
you wanna
provide
add-
electricity, water, or other public utilities. When public health or safety is involved, I mean, that's there.
Including state of emergencies? At the end of that sentence, like
What about a
phrase?
state of emergency is declared by a federal or state agency?
That's what a state of emergency basically is. Either the local or state defines a state of emergency and tells us when it's in effect.
As long as it's defined that way somewhere in the ordinance.
Yeah, that's what
Make
we're-
sure that not anybody can say we got an emergency.
Right, yeah, it has to be declared by either the state or the municipalities. Correct, that's what a state of emergency is, yes. So, keep moving on through, not limited to emergency alerts, which again would be something they would have on site to alert the residents if something went south, to either shelter in place or, get out of the area, or whatever. Emergency work to provide electricity, water, or other public utilities. Again, to me, that means if their sewer plant will be down, they have to do additional work to replenish that, their wells. So that would be emergency work as I see defined, or if an underground cable would, like happened in my house, actually rot and create a grounding problem. That would be emergency work to provide electricity. We want to, and what we're looking at is, they can run the auxiliary power system in use all right, there it is. Auxiliary power systems in use during a state of emergency declared by the state or municipality, or primary power system failure are exempt from sound level exemptions. So that covers, PP&L, UGI, all those. It also defines a state of emergency declared by the state or municipality. So, and then I think we have to do it, like Scott was saying, a duration time. So let's reword that way. So auxiliary power systems in use during a state of emergency declared by state or municipality, or primary power system failure are exempt from sound level requirements. And that would be for a duration of no more than, what's your thoughts? A week? I'm looking for opinions.
I was gonna say, would the emergency
As long as there's a
direct
state
the
of
language?
That makes sense. For duration no longer than 24 hours after the end of the state of emergency.
Yeah.
That works. Perfect. Thank you. Well, that's why we're all here.
Yeah.
Multiple heads are better than three.
On J, if you finish J.
All right, let's make sure these two guys are okay with what we did there.
Yeah.
I got head nods. Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
So back to Jay. You got a question on Jay?
Yeah, under access, our roads aren't really built for heavy equipment. Can they be required to maintain or repair roads?
At least 24 hours after the state of emergency is over.
Pretty clear what emergency is.
The state of emergency is defined by the state or local municipality. Okay. All right, sorry, we had to go back to the other question on that. I apologize. So you're asking about holding them accountable for any road damage or anything during the construction process or at any time?
At least in construction, if not the whole time they're there.
I think traffic will be minimal when they're operational.
Yeah, when they're operational.
There'll be a lot more
Right.
building.
Mostly
Is
construction.
that something we could look at in the developer's agreement versus the ordinance?
Yeah, sometimes they do have like surveys of the road condition prior to construction.
Right.
And, so, and that could be part of the developer's agreement, yeah.
I think that would better be fit in the developer's agreement than the ordinance.
And just do a survey ahead of time and
Yeah.
then say, if the roads are deteriorated, they need to be repaired.
The only roads they're using are state roads.
Well, they may end up using Taylor for some type of access.
Yeah, you can limit though Taylor for any
Right.
construction and make them use the other.
Right. So I think we're best to look at that under developers agreement, and we would do rather than the ordinance, because it would only be for a slow time. Because like, once they're up and running, there's gonna be minimal traffic and there wouldn't be any heavy trucks or anything.
Okay.
So I think,
About the military in Port Indian Gap and the Sentinel landscape zone. Can you require that they contact Port Indian Gap and talk to the people that run the Sentinel landscape zone as far as night operations for the military?
I don't think we could touch anything federal.
Anything federal or state we can't touch.
Programs that they work with people voluntarily, so you would have to require the developer to voluntarily contact them for their recommendations.
Okay, if you can give me more information on that, that might be something else that we can add to the developers agreement versus the ordinance. Because again, the way you're presenting that, it sounds like that's something that would be more in that realm than what the ordinance would be. So I'd like to get a little more clarification on that, so we can decide whether it would be an amendment to this or in the developers agreement. Okay, so moving on, number 5, number 6, and number 7. Anything on those?
What page?
We're still under the J, access, safety, and security.
Yes, in number 7, one of the concerns that's been expressed has been around wildlife and migration patterns. For any of these ponds, lakes, marshes, swamps, non-riverine areas, fencing them inside of a fenced facility, I think you're trying to understand the specific purpose, if they're inside the fenced facility, of creating further fencing around them. I can understand certain stormwater management facilities that require that so you don't have the potential to fall in there. But around some of these areas that are inside of a fenced facility, that seems to be potentially above and beyond. It's more likely to limit any type of wildlife and migration patterns than allow them to naturally occur.
Anybody can get inside one fence with intent and purpose. If they get inside the second fence, it would further, I think, protect you, showing their intent and purpose to get in the facility and into that, and maybe prevent you from a lawsuit. So I'm kind of looking at it on your behalf also on that line, but also the fact that anybody can do anything they want. They can cut the fence, they can climb it, they can bury under it.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of looking at it as a double protection for everybody. Dementia patients get out, they can walk through the gate undetected, get into the property. Children, I don't know what type of gating you're putting up or intend to put up. I don't know if it's going to be a fencing, a mechanical, if there's going to be a security guard. So to me, it's just additional protection for everybody.
The level of security at these facilities is incredible.
Yep.
There will not be anybody coming in around.
And the president got shot in the ear too, at 50 yards. So, yeah, anything can happen. I think we need it.
Okay, and these just within the limits of disturbance, like little very large property, if there's areas that are a half a mile away.
No, it would only be within that property boundary that you would fence any additional wetlands, storm runoff.
What we would call is the limits of disturbance of the property.
Right.
So the area of the facility, not the area of the property. He's saying the property's this big, but the facility's this big. Are you talking about fencing everything in the facility or fencing all the ponds and wetlands in the entire property? Because right now,
There's a big portion of the property that's
Right,
an ag
no,
zone that
yeah.
we're not really touching. Right.
Yeah. No, it would be the area of the actual center.
The development area,
Yeah.
not the property.
Like you said, land of disturbance.
Yeah, I just want to clarify the language is the limits of disturbance and not the property. Because that would address some of this concern of fencing the stream that wildlife is using for their everyday life.
Right.
That we're fencing it and it's a half a mile away.
Right.
So would you put any non-ravine water sources inside of the facilities and project boundary?
Within the project boundary. How do you say project boundary?
Land of disturbance or project boundary. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to K, emergency management. I saw Kevin. Kevin, do you have anything there? Or are you still here?
I think what you had in there covered our questions initially under K.
Okay.
You have some down for.
Okay, I saw a hand in the back. Pam?
To perhaps add a number 5, that MRPI or its applicant or resident, that they would have to provide any and all sufficient materials, equipment, training, maintenance, and inspection of anything that they would need for an emergency at their property, so that our volunteers are already adequately provided by them anything that they may need during an emergency, that they're not putting themselves in jeopardy, that their backs are covered before they get in a vehicle going to that location.
I think a majority of that is covered under the NFPA and state regulations. About the only thing we could probably really add, and Linus and Chris and Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, would be to provide the additional training. But I think most of that is already covered through NFPA and state regulations. So I think the only thing we could really add would be to provide the additional training required to handle that facility, which I don't disagree with. I would fully enforce that and agree with that for number 5.
That does kind of fall in with number 4 too, about the procedures and equipment necessary.
They're paying for.
Yeah, and that would be what you're adding on, yes.
Yes.
So add number 5 to provide prior and continuous training for emergency services.
How many fire departments are going to be required?
Well, that would be with NFPA, they would work with NFPA on what, basically the fire department works on a mutual aid agreement, and they have set boxes based on residential, commercial, whether it's a shed, whether it's a apartment building. So each box is set up to bring the equipment necessary for that particular emergency. Those boxes are set by the fire departments themselves. So if Kevin would be the chief at the time, he would work with Liverpool, Duncannon, Halifax, whatever would be needed to set up that box to get the proper equipment to that emergency, whether it be a fire, chemical spill, and each box is set up depending on the type of emergency. Again, like I was saying, whether it be a structure fire, whether it be a vehicle fire on the premises, whether it be a chemical spill, and those things. So those kind of things are kind of predetermined through the departments and what information they get from the developer on what equipment is needed per type of emergency at that facility. So all that would be addressed within the training that they would provide to the municipality, emergency services. And I would hope and expect that our fire department would invite, probably any department within a 15-mile radius, because they're probably going to be there to any type of training or exercises that would be run. So those kind of things are kind of really set by the departments through box alarms, is what they're called. Kevin, do you want to add anything to that?
I think the only thing to really add there is when this first came into play as a proposed warehouse, we had already gotten authorization from the county to make that property its own box assignment. So should anything occur on that property, regardless of what gets built there, once construction starts, it will have its own assignment of apparatus coming in, not including, something happened here, because they would be within the same zone currently right now. But obviously, this church building or the district justice office across the street versus any large development there is going to be two totally different animals. So we got the authorization to make it its own assignment, so we could have what we need initially there and not bring way too much in for something over here.
Right, each type of incident would bring its own equipment. And right now, there's currently 7 boxes within the township. And I'm not gonna break them down for you because we don't have time for that tonight, but there's currently 7. So they would be looking at adding an 8th box alarm to the box alarm system to bring the equipment needed. Quick question, and we'll move on.
Question, this is gonna take huge battery supplies so it's uninterruptible. Till those generators spin up, as soon as the power drops, there's gonna be battery backup there. So will the equipment to fight potential battery-related incident be installed with the fire departments? Or would that be equipment that will be on site at the data center itself?
Well, they would have to provide on-site fire suppression regardless for whatever is there. The fire department would have to then invest in any additional equipment to fight those fires above and beyond what the fire suppression would have to, be able to handle. So, either whether that be coming out of the taxing money that we, get from, the whatever would be coming in the warehouse, data center, grocery store, but all that would be offset through the additional taxes and stuff too for the purchase of equipment.
Like when a Tesla car goes and flames on the side of a highway, a lot of times you just let it burn.
Yeah, because it takes approximately almost 10,000 gallons of water to put out a Tesla. Yeah, so normally they let it burn. You are correct. So, okay, moving on. So we're gonna add number 5.
As far as the chemical spill idea, if residents have to be evacuated, won't the developer have to pay for the accommodations while people are evacuated to other locations?
I think that's something we can look at later, because we also have to determine how far the fire out shelter would have to be. Would it be able to be the community center? Would it be Duncannon? Would it be Halifax? Because everything depends on wind, rain, humidity, whether it's, the HDL is 1 or HDL is below 0, which would be a -1. So there's a lot of factors in what determines an evacuation. You got, does the chemical raise in the air? Does it sink in the air? Does it displace the air? So all that has to be looked at on a separate level versus in the ordinance. I mean, that's a whole different animal in itself. I mean, even if a tractor trailer of ammonia would wreck out here tonight, we may have the shelter in place here all night, depending on which way the wind's blowing, which way everything's going. So that's something we have to look at all together later. So moving back to number 5, developer.
Wordage, providing previous and continuous training for fire services as needed to maintain qualifications, or how do you want that worded?
Yep.
Anything else, including? And is that, are we having that it's the applicant or landowner or
Well,
developer?
it would be a developer, occupant, or landowner. Because they would sell it, lease it.
Training, and equipment or training?
Well, they're gonna provide the training, but the equipment would have to come through the tax money. Unless it would be something special, then maybe we could ask for assistance, but.
You should probably put in there that it's training to support the facility, not just general
Right.
training.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So provide previous and continuous training
To support the facility.
to support the facility as needed.
Yep. Okay. Parking. I think that's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
M, loading areas, I don't think there's anything really there that we need.
Nope.
Under water use. Somebody say my name? Kevin?
Under loading areas, that would go down to number 4 in regards to fire lanes, subsection D. Get rid of that 15 feet. We would like that to be from the building edge extending 25 feet.
So you wanted to read able to access the
An area from the building edge.
area not.
25 feet.
You want to come up, Kevin?
Yeah.
Just so Carol can hear it and get it right.
So you said it was D?
Yeah, section M, loading areas.
Yep.
Number 4D.
Yep.
Get rid of the not less than 15 feet. Make
Okay.
that from building edge to 25 feet.
Because ideally, we do not want a tower truck any further away than 20-foot center line, and 25 feet would give enough to drop the outrigger out.
Well, you also have to look at collapse zone.
In that case, we would have to move further out, but initially just going with simple math, if you go with a 20-foot, which would be the closest you'd be able to get with 15 and the outrigger being down, you're looking at 52 feet of extension needed just to reach the edge of the roof and not actually get onto it. With the local tower trucks being 75 foot, that gets you maybe 10 feet to play with by the time you get over the parapet wall if there is one. So getting it closer would ensure better access. Obviously, if it was a collapse situation, we'd be further away either way.
So able to access from the building edge to 25 feet, and do we keep the rest from there? Greater than 30 feet from the data centers and be in the same size structure?
Yeah, we need at least the building edge to 25 feet. If you want to keep it to 30 you have, instead of changing it, that's fine, but get rid of that not less than
All right,
50.
so how about we just do is able to access the area
From the building edge.
from building edge to 30 feet.
To 30 feet.
Or greater.
That works.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so back to water use.
You got a numbering issue there again, you're going from like.
Yeah, I went through and got all the right letters.
Okay, so we're on Q, water use. Joe, do you have anything before I go?
Well, we were having discussion on 9 is the big thing. You know, we have that bond put in place.
Okay, let's back up before we do that, because I have something before that.
Go ahead.
Carl, do you have anything before I go?
No, that's fine.
Okay, I think under 2, the applicant shall provide proof of review and approval from the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and/or the Susquehanna River Basin. I think it should be, take out the word or and just make it and.
Okay.
Now, let me make sure that's okay with, Chris and the rest of the team.
If number one, if you're requiring a closed loop system,
That doesn't mean that.
What are they going to be drawing water for, and what is that for then? You know, at that point, they're just, it's bathrooms and a kitchen. You know, it's what like a normal industrial use is. So, like number one seems to, you're saying closed loop system, and you got to bring water in from outside. So then, why all the other verbiage about if you're drawing water from the river, because you basically said you can't draw water from the river, so I don't know why that's even really needed anymore.
So you're saying take out number 2 altogether?
I think there's a lot that can be taken out. Once you say you're doing a closed loop system, and you're not allowed to draw water from the ground or the river, then all of these other water things, what's the purpose of them anymore?
So I've seen some articles that it talks about they were trusted that they did a closed loop system, and then they not saying they would, but they actually did draw water, and they ended up, destroying a lot of the water in the wells from the area. So would it be okay to have something reviewed to make sure what they said they, were going to build, they did build?
Well, we're making it a requirement that it's a closed loop system. They don't have an option to go the other way.
Right, but I mean, like, they're saying they're going to, do something that it's, for bathrooms and things like that. Is it a requirement that it's reviewed to make sure that that's exactly what they did? I don't know, it just was, one of those horror stories.
I see where you're going, I understand where you're going, but I also see his point. If it's a closed loop system, your basic wells are used for your, kitchens, bathrooms and such. So they really wouldn't be drawing, from the Susquehanna for any of that. I don't know, do we want to leave it in there just as a buffer for protection?
Is there any concern for this? It depends on what kind of cooling system that they use.
Well, they could use glycol or, yes, I'm going to talk about that.
I'm not talking about that. It depends on whether they use heat exchangers or cooling towers. Heat exchangers don't necessarily require the water, but it's a closed loop system within an open loop system. That's the best I can explain it.
Okay.
From what I've read. But it requires water
Well, we're requiring all water to be brought in from outside the township.
But that's for putting in the closed loop system. That is not, that does not reflect on water that may be
You can leave
used,
it in there.
that gets evaporated out.
It's just
Okay,
That would be
so
a-
Lima says we can leave it in, so we'll leave that in, but do we want to take out the word or leave it and/or?
I mean, these organizations aren't gonna review things they don't have purview over. You know, if I give DEP a PennDOT permit plan and say, would you review this? They're gonna say no. That's not what we do. So if you're gonna try to give them, if you're gonna want them, they're not gonna review something that isn't under their authority to review.
Right.
So, you know,
Just put if
Where,
as applicable.
if applicable or as
where
applicable.
and how do you want to change it?
Right in front of two,
If applicable, okay.
Okay, but again, do we want to leave it and/or take out the word or?
Just leave if applicable.
Leave it the way it is? Okay. And I know some people would talk about, you got glycol, you got, different types. We say all cooling systems must be closed loop, so I think that pretty much covers whether it be glycol, water, whatever fluids, other fluids they could use for cooling. I think that pretty much covers that, so I don't think we need to define each type of cooling entity that's utilized. Again, I appreciate the feedback on that, but I think that pretty much sums that up. All right. All right, so you had something under 9?
I think that's the big concern from everybody is, we're talking about the $2.5 million
You got
bond
mine.
we have.
And one of the things everybody's been concerned of is everybody's well is going dry. And we put in 9 a $2.5 million bond to protect well water. So Chris, back to your statement, water's gonna be trucked in, it's a non-issue, but again, how do we protect the people? So it's not an issue.
Well, you could lower it and then make
If the
it,
pump goes, they're gonna lose all the fluid, it's gonna go right to the ground, and they're not gonna care. The pump will go.
well, and I think that's where Joel's going. We need not just to look at, the ground usage, but what if there's contamination? And I think that's where Joel's going.
Contamination, and what if we're gonna provide water to the people during a transition? People that have farm animals, providing them water, providing drinkable water. I'm trying to figure out how can we word this to protect everybody.
Did you get a chance to look at some verbiage on? I'm not sure how
You're
that's.
talking about increasing it.
I'm not saying increasing, but how can we?
Either make a continuance or again, how can
$2.5 million bond to be reviewed.
Okay, 1 second, I'm trying to listen to Linus here.
You want to review this amount every so many years, is that it?
Yeah, would give us the right to go to review this annually in case it needs to increase annually. And how can we word this in the event, again, we got a farmer here that his well goes dry. How are we gonna get water? We don't want that landowner to be responsible for taking water for his livestock or his family for drinking water during that process.
Should have an alternative.
I mean, what's gonna happen to his property value if there's wells over that? I mean, at $2.5 million, that cover about 10 properties in this area.
So how can we have the same?
You're not gonna get water from anywhere, it's ground polluted, you can't.
Well, and again, we're looking at contamination and everything, so that's why we're trying to come up with a figure, and whether we change it every year to a percentage increase, that's what we're trying to figure out.
Why don't you put to be reviewed annually for any necessary increase?
Can we make a suggestion on this one? I think right now the language is bond only. Would it be possible to expand that to financial security, consistent with the MVC? That way, an end user, someone comes in and doesn't want to have a bond, they can put up a $2.5 million cash escrow if they wanted to, and just have the cash sitting there.
Well, see, I was actually looking at making it a cash escrow, to the township. And that would be, provided by the developer, leasee, or landowner. Because, you may sell, you may lease, because developer, once it's leased or sold, we just leave developer in here, then that kind of takes them out of the picture, so.
But we're acceptable.
Financial security should be
Put
acceptable,
2.5.
Whether it's a bond, a letter of credit, or a cash escrow, those.
I would like to see it as a cash escrow, because in the end, if we return the 2.5, we get the interest.
But you're not allowed to make a profit off of that.
Right.
So you're flirting on illegality.
Okay.
So.
Somebody had brought that up to me, I didn't,
2.5
I thought I'd bring it up.
or acceptable financial security.
Say that again?
Or acceptable financial security.
acceptable.
And again, by the developer, leasing, or landowner.
By the developers or landowner of the data center.
To be reviewed annually, you said?
To be reviewed annually for any necessary increase.
So underneath those guidelines, it's gonna protect everybody if drinking water, farming water, that's all gonna fall underneath this.
Their fluid should be checked, their discharge, their toilets and whatnot, their fluid drains, because that's all gonna go down to the river.
You should be testing groundwater and surface water after each phase and annually in case there's a leak.
Did you get Linus's last wording though on the reviewed annually potential of any increase?
Okay, yep, got it.
So where do we fall that? So then that's going to cover all of that, correct? Where do we want to have water testing? Do you know something that we need to get involved in, Chris?
Water testing for what?
Discharge water.
That would fall underneath DEP, I would think, for the sewer plant.
It's gonna be their sewer permits, whatever they need for treatment. I don't think you need to include anything specific in here.
Do we need to add anything that, water would be provided for X amount of time to those until it's replenished?
$2.5 million is a lot of money. You drill out new wells.
Not really.
It's a lot of money.
Not really. Not when you farm.
But I'm saying, if somebody's well would go dry tomorrow, do we want to add something that they would provide, bottled water for X amount of time until it's proven either their use or not, that was the case? Because somebody's got to get that water from somewhere.
I would think that's what that $2.5 million is
Okay.
for.
Okay.
That's a protector.
Do we need to change the wording on that to protect?
To ensure that it does provide that, I guess.
I don't know how to advise you on this. I don't know that this is
Okay.
really legal. I don't know that you're allowed to do this. This provision specifically might make this ordinance invalid. So I don't want to, I don't know.
I think it's worded fine, just leave it in.
Okay, so leave it as is. Okay. Citizens shall supply raw water needs analysis showing required quantities from any private or public source. Okay.
I want my well, my water, not theirs. That's crazy, you're gonna get me, Trump's gonna come in anger.
I'm not
sure where you're getting at.
I'm not sure I understand.
My water, and then they're gonna give me theirs.
No, we're not saying they're gonna give you theirs, they would either re-drill your well or bring water in to you until your well is replenished or re-drilled.
Water's perfect.
I understand that.
They're gonna give me perfect water.
Again, they would either re-drill or provide water that's clean water for use, potable water.
That's not acceptable.
Okay.
What is that water going to be for? Is that just for drinking or?
It would be potable water for showering, bathing, drinking, cooking. They would have to provide your daily water.
Water, they would have to truck in for that? And I've seen places where
Okay.
they have supplied water for people who have something go wrong with their.
We have the protection in place. It would provide you adequate water for the time being and also re-drill your well if needed.
And you realize some wells are very deep and some are very shallow?
Correct.
I mean,
My neighbor just heard she had to have her well re-drilled.
yeah.
So, yes, and so yes. All right, so moving on. Page 13, power supply. Folks, we understand water is a very touchy subject, and you can go many different ways with it. I mean, we have the bond in place, you know, for 2.5 million to do what we need. We're going to review it annually to see if it needs increased. I mean, that's really kind of the best, you know, we're looking at right now. Again, we need to get through this, get this done. We can make amendments later. All right, so power supply. Joel? Carl?
Okay with that.
Green building techniques. I'm kind of looking at that first one that says are encouraged to implement low impact.
That's the stupidest thing in the world. They're gonna have so much heat, it's gonna be an inferno.
Okay.
Calm down, Ernie, calm down.
Calm down. Green building techniques. Again, it says data centers are encouraged to implement. I mean, I'm thinking that's kind of a open-ended statement.
Did we do R?
Well, I'm thinking either required, shall, or are required, one or the other.
Are we on, so we're on.
Or just take it, you know, are required or shall.
Do we require them to have solar?
If they were to put solar in, they would have to build the entire township to supply that place. They would take up every house in this township to get enough solar panels to power a data center. Okay, we're getting off track here, folks.
Let's go on, yeah.
Okay, so do we want to make that are required or shall versus encouraged?
Let's put data centers shall implement.
Okay, so change encouraged to shall and take out encouraged to.
It's still pretty nebulous in general. I mean, and anytime green building techniques, it's like how many do they have to provide? You know, what do they have to do? It's a really tough to enforce that type of stuff. I mean, you can have it in there, and if they do one, then they might say, "Well, who did it?" You know,
Well,
so it's part of me says this whole section doesn't really have much teeth, but you can still encourage them to do it or
Right.
require them to do something.
Something to
But
protect your
don't know how much
Yeah.
something is.
Right. Okay, moving on to page 14, continuation. And then we get into woodland disturbance.
Question on the power supply. Quick comment. In your future, maybe a future something to consider is when it comes to power to the data center, we're getting close to where hydrogen is feasible. Say, you probably want to close that and say, you know, no hydrogen power or even atomic, just to cover the blanket. Not now, but just something to consider in the future.
Okay, thank you.
When they go bang, they go big time.
Big time bang.
Someone else's problem.
Yeah.
All right, so woodland disturbance. Again, freestanding trees measuring 6 inches or greater in diameter at breast height. not be removed?
It says no portions shall be removed.
Okay. All right, air quality, backup generators, exhaust gases, noxious odors, or similar emissions shall adhere to all applicable state and federal air quality emission standards.
So we have like, if there's an action day, they have to be careful running generators in addition.
I would think so, yes. They would have to fall under that, I would think. All right, threatened and endangered species. I know a lot of people brought up the bald eagle and golden eagle Endangered Species Act. I know a lot of people are looking into that. So hopefully, somebody can bring something back on that. And again,
When are they testing the air quality?
that's a good question. Do we have a pre-test and a post-test at each occupancy, the same as we do the noise?
I think they'll probably need an air quality permit, depending on the number of generators they have.
Okay.
And the state will govern that stuff.
Okay. Good question, though. Thank you. Okay, so moving through that, page 14, moving over to continuation, page 15, environmental and community impact status analysis. Again, I think a lot of that's pretty much government. I know I did not have anything there. Page 16, continuation, and then it starts letter X, site preparation, use of explosives. And again, I think we talked about this in the earlier meeting, that the permits pretty much cover time, property testing, foundation checking, all that stuff within a certain perimeter of the blasting zone. So I don't think there's really anything that we need to add there. I know it was brought up in a couple of the emails I got, and I think I may have seen it in here. Like I said, I've gotten many emails from outside the township, inside the township. It's hard to keep them straight, but I think pretty much all that's covered under the blasting permits, so the testing and foundation checking and well checking.
Okay with that.
So decommission, remediation, and disposal. I know a lot of question has come to me regarding adding buildings being removed and decommission, and I think that's something that we should consider unless they can show that they have a signed tenant for those buildings at the time of decommissioning. Because, we really should have the land taken back to pre-development status, which would include the removal of the buildings. Any thought on that, Chris?
Yes. I don't think removal of buildings is reasonable. And they're gonna want to release them to somebody, and they may take some changes to them to do that. But as soon as if a data center decides to leave, they immediately have to have a tenant to replace it. That's unreasonable. I mean, they're going to have some time to market that property and find a new tenant for it. So having them tear down the building because they don't have a tenant the minute the data center decides to leave doesn't seem reasonable.
Point taken.
They're also, the tenant's not just gonna leave, they're gonna have something in their lease that they have to give, whatever, 60 days, 180 days notice. It's not like they're gonna be unaware, they're just gonna leave tomorrow.
Right.
Well, they may go bankrupt and
You're still gonna pay, they're gonna pay a little money for the 6 months or whatever the time frame is.
So leave buildings out of it.
I know last time we were talking about decommissioning wasn't necessarily buildings, it was the other things, the equipment, the hazardous things, making sure that anything that would be dangerous and not reusable by another tenant.
Yeah, we have that in there.
Should be removed.
Yeah.
But you know, like you might have a, let's just say a manufacturing user that comes in that wants that substation that was part of the data center. You wouldn't want to make them tear out a substation if
Right.
it could be used by the next tenant.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Obviously, you don't want toxic materials sitting around and that type of stuff, but I didn't think the last time we were speaking, it was related to buildings
Hazardous
and things that could be used
inside and
again.
outside.
Yeah, that's what we have in there.
Do we have buildings there?
No, that's,
We
the
took
people
that
were
out.
asking
Originally, we
about
had
buildings.
buildings, I think we took
We took
buildings
them out.
He has the word improvements.
Hazardous materials inside and outside.
Paragraph A, costs released reasonably related to the removal of data center improvements.
Okay. Somebody said they had a question?
I have a question. I couldn't hear this gentleman real clear, so I'm not sure if I'm repeating anything or not. On number 2, item B, where it says at the end, complete decommissioning of the property owner's expense, are we assuming that the property owner didn't go defunct? And there's nobody there to,
Well, there's always a chance they can go bankrupt.
yeah, I know.
So, and I don't really know how we would protect against that.
$1 million bond.
Yeah.
Well, you have financial security, number 6 on the next page.
Yeah, we have financial security at number 6 on the next page, so. Okay. So, if that's gonna continue, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. We asked in the beginning that it be held civil, and we are asking for that to remain. All right, so there is a decommissioning bond of 110% of the approved estimate. So we do have the security there.
It says 150% and then 110 in parentheses.
It was correct.
Yeah, it was correct.
Yeah, it was corrected.
Thanks.
Yep. So any changes there?
Chris, were you questioning the percentage, or did we get that correct? Did we have it wrong the last time we tweaked it?
110% is typically what the NPC allows for financial security. Okay.
All right. So administrative and enforcement is section 618, special exceptions, conditional uses.
So this is where we had to go in because you were making it a conditional use?
Yeah, but there has to be some adjustment here.
Okay, yeah. I was just letting them know that because you made a conditional use, we didn't have that previously. We only had special exceptions, so we had to take that whole section and add conditional use into that, so. That's what that whole next section
What
is
needs
about.
fixed, Linus?
Well, number 5, it says conditions and safeguards for special exception. It should say the zoning hearing board may require the special exception, or the board of supervisors may require for conditional use permits. Board of Supervisors does conditional uses, zoning hearing board special exceptions.
Okay, so under number 5, once we get it down, I'll let you know the change. So under number 5, it currently reads, the zoning hearing board may require the special exception or conditional use. We're adding the zoning hearing board and board of supervisors?
Well, or board of supervisors for
Or
conditional use.
board of supervisors.
So I'm putting the board of supervisors before the conditional use because they're the ones that govern the
Right.
conditional use.
So you had a whole section that was about generic special exceptions.
Right.
And how a special exception moves through the process. Your ordinance didn't have any conditional uses. You're adding this as a conditional use, which means you as the supervisors want to make the decision on this.
Correct.
Versus having the zoning hearing board do it.
Correct.
So this was added as a way, I mean, maybe the better way of doing it is adding a whole new section of the ordinance that talks about conditional uses the same way you have one that talks about special exceptions. I think what we tried to do here was to take the section on special exceptions and make it applicable to both. So
Yeah.
we might have a little wordsmithing we have to do
Yeah.
on a few things like Linus just
Yeah.
mentioned.
Can I make a comment on it? This is me looking at it from a developer's attorney's perspective. The MPC in your zoning ordinance state that a zoning determination like a conditional use essentially becomes part of the zoning ordinance, and that it then becomes enforced by the zoning officer. And you are now, through this provision, pulling that out of the zoning officer's hands, and I can tell you that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Like, I don't think you can do that, Linus, can you?
What's that?
Once a conditional use is adopted or
Right.
approved, it's essentially part of the zoning ordinance, and the zoning officer enforces it. I don't think a board can then say, no, we're gonna take over the enforcement.
No,
And say that you
the
need to come
zoning
back.
officer enforces, the board approves it.
Right, but I think this provision is saying that the board would be the one enforcing. If the board determines that conditions are not being complied with, the board can require renewal.
Because you're saying it's about the conditions and safeguards of an approved conditional use. That,
Correct. I don't think a board
actually,
can
that
say
probably-
you have to come back and do it again. I think a zoning officer can say you're out of compliance with your approval. Here's your notice of violation, go appeal it. But I don't believe that a board has authority to require someone to come back in. I don't.
Oh, so, okay, you're saying for section 5.
Is that the renewal one?
Yeah.
Right.
Then yes.
Yeah, enforcement is in the hands of the zoning officer, not the zoning hearing board or the board of supervisors.
So it should say the zoning officer may require the special exception.
Well,
I think the zoning officer would issue a notice of violation.
This,
This
but I'm
was
not
the-
sure
this
this
was
deals
the
with.
original language.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
it
not sure
is.
it deals with violation, Asher, maybe periodically renewed.
Yeah.
Because it's talking about if they're determining that the conditions are not being met.
Probably should be removed.
Number 5.
I'm not sure why it's.
Mm-hmm.
That was in the original ordinance.
Yeah.
We just added the word and conditional use permits.
Right.
Look, the zoning officer is in charge of enforcement of special exceptions, conditional uses.
Leave it in as is, just remove the.
I think I remove it.
Remove all section 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. And that makes number 6, number 5, and number 7, number 6. Okay. All right, D, general procedures, anything? All right, next page, continuation. Anything, Joan?
Thanks, fine.
Page 21, continuation. And the final page, 22. Your signatures, repealer, and revisions. Okay. So we had some comments at the beginning. You want to take a look at?
Talking about the fees to be set for a conditional use permit or by resolution.
Because we have to add it to the fee schedule, from my understanding, right? That's a separate thing.
Right, okay.
Which one are you looking at?
There's a comment about real estate evaluation. You know, people's property changes. Is there anything that can be discussed about that? I guess everybody's concerned value of people's property goes down in these locations if that occurs.
Again, the more changes we make, the longer it's gonna take. So let's,
I think you should put in here that the section C, D, E.
what page?
Page 22, after conditional uses up there, put a paragraph E that fees for the submission of special exception or conditional use applications shall be set by resolution.
So I would add a paragraph basically that the fees for conditional special use are gonna be set by resolution,
Correct.
Yeah.
which will be E on page 22 under conditional uses. After conditional uses. So the real estate assessment, is that something that would be in the ordinance or developer's agreement or,
I don't know how you do a real estate appraisal.
do you wanna look into that for us? That's something that we can or
I think
can't do?
that's something to consider in the future.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Something we need to look more
Do
into.
that.
I don't really know if you
You know,
can
like
do
if
it.
an adult business goes in, you know, property values go down, I don't know if there's
Right.
any legal recourse that I just don't.
Yeah, but an adult business doesn't drain the aquifers or cause heat islands. I mean, this
It
is,
diminishes property values.
yeah, but this is all new for everybody, so something has to be set in place.
I think that that's
They
something
only
you
have
would,
the authority to do what the MPC
they're gonna,
allows
they're
them to
gonna
do.
look at this from a conditional use standpoint. That's something that individuals can bring up in the conditional use process.
It needs to be looked into.
As a resident, they could bring that up as a concern, because a conditional use looks at general matters, and certainly a resident can bring that up.
What else do we have on the list there, Jim?
Touch base on decommissioning. It sounds a big thing. We need to get a sound expert involved to help us. Again, that's something that's gonna have to be done at a later date.
Well, again, that's something we, both parties would have to agree upon who the sound expert would be.
Right.
And we put that in there.
Put one
Like,
team.
both parties don't have to agree on the sound expert that advises you on the ordinance.
Right,
Both parties should agree on the sound expert that's brought in to do a study.
Correct.
Yes,
Yes.
but not to
no,
advise you on. what the
no,
ordinance
you're
is.
correct, yes.
No, I think by us getting a sound expert involved in this is gonna give us time to go through some of these other comments and changes. We can make some amendments down the road. I feel we got this thing pretty decent, but again, we need to get a sound expert to help us with our sound comments and teeth. We can't make that decision tonight,
No,
which will give us more time then to crawl through some of these other things that have been provided to the public to us.
yeah,
So we can make those modifications and sound modifications at another time. What I was just saying is that everybody has concerns on the sounds. I think we need to get a sound expert to help us with a lot of this wording. And this is something that we can make an amendment to this, down the road in a short time. And again, a lot of the other information that you guys had graciously put together and all the other emails to give us time to read through these things so we can make an amendment after we get this thing into motion. But again, we need help with sound. HRD is not a sound expert to help us with this process. And that's what we need.
We can help it.
Good.
Advise you on who
Good.
to use, but we
Right.
don't provide those services.
The sound thing was in.
Madam Secretary, any comments?
Nope.
No, I don't think you need any more. No. I think it's up to you now.
Or do you have any additional comments, changes? Linus, any other
No.
information? Chris? Okay.
I mean, it still has to go through a public hearing.
Right, we just want to get set to make the motion for. All right, so I would like to make the motion that we proceed with moving this forward to the Perry County Planning Commission along with our local planning commission in West Township and set a public hearing date and special meeting date for June, I keep wanting to say January, June 30th, 2026. Huh? Yeah, June 25th.
I didn't think that worked with the church.
Well, it doesn't. We're going to have to hold it at the community
Oh,
center.
that's right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that would be at the community center because the church is unavailable. So I make a motion that we move this forward with what we have to the Perry County Planning Commission and the Watts Township Planning Commission and set the public hearing date for 6 o'clock.
I'll second that.
That's June 25th, 2026 at the community center, followed by a special meeting.
To consider adoption. Special meeting to
To consider the adoption, correct,
Yeah.
of the ordinance. Because again, any public comment on that date could very well change anything. So I have a motion, I need a second.
I'll second.
Yes. Take your pick, Madam Secretary. Any further discussion? There no further discussion, all in favor by saying aye. Aye. All opposed by saying.
Make a motion.
Haven't heard, none, motion carried. I'll make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Second by Carl, all in favor, aye, all opposed by the same. Again, thank you folks for coming out. Again, we appreciate all the feedback, the emails from outside the township, inside the township. We especially appreciate the effort that went into the pamphlet. We are looking at everything.
Yep.
A lot of it we are getting is duplicate from the emails. So, you know, we're going to continue to work on this. There will be workshops. And again, you know, we like to come up with one large amendment versus multiple small, and then continue to move from there. So again, we appreciate everybody. Continue the contacts and communications. Thank you.
Hey, Linus. The Walker Township Supervisors got rid of the planning commission, now they're, or the planning commission too. Is that legal?
No, but they can appoint a planning commission